violent stabbing attacks. It is a Dominican gang the NYPD has been watching and fighting for years.
What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of Corruption Connection. I'm your host, Tony Hernandez. If you're familiar with the gang culture in New York City, then you definitely heard the name Trinitarios, a Dominican gang based out of Washington Heights. They control different areas in the Bronx and recently have spread their tentacles through other states along the eastern seaboard. You see them in New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Florida.
They said they took into custody more than a dozen suspected Trinitarios gang members at locations in Washington Heights, as well as in Hackensack, New Jersey, starting at 6 a.m. At this barber shop, then, federal agents say they barged into illegal gambling activity, shocking the people inside.
They're a real problem in New York City and obviously in the other states I mentioned too as well. As many of you know, I'm a retired NYPD transit cop where I did a majority of my career working as an undercover in the transit system. I dealt with the Trinitarios personally, and I'll tell you a story about them.
But we found there's a strong connection.
I would rather deal with organized crime than disorganized crime. Because in disorganized crime, everybody's out there doing whatever they wanted to do. In organized crime, only certain people can do it.
If you've seen the news articles and the videos on social media, you see that most of them have green, the color is green. If you see most of them, they're covered in beads and bandanas. A lot of the times you'll see them at the parades. They're very heavy in the Dominican parade that runs down 6th Avenue in Manhattan. You'll see them in Washington Heights, throughout the Bronx. The notable attire for a Trinitario gang member is a green bandana or some kind of green flag. It kind of dictates who they are and differentiates them from the other gangs. They were created in 1992, I believe 92 or 93 in Rikers Island, in order to defend themselves against the other rival gangs. Like, Dominicans were a very small population at that time within the prison system. So in Rikers Island in the early 90s, it was dominated by the Bloods, the Latin Kings, the Nietas, and in order to protect themselves, the Dominicans formed a loosely affiliated group called the Trinitarios. Originally, it was for protection, just like everything else, to protect themselves from extortion by other gang members and violence and stuff like that. But eventually, they morphed into a transnational criminal organization. The roots can be traced back to Rikers Island, like I said, but their tentacles stretch all the way from New York to the Dominican Republic. They're involved in murder for hire, extortion, gambling, drug trafficking, you name it. They're like a one-stop shop for all criminal activity. They came to notoriety in the mid-2000s with the death of Alejandro Guzman, a 16-year-old student who was stabbed up in the Bronx right outside of St. Barnabas Hospital, and he was mistaken to be a rival gang member. Sometimes these Trinitarios, they have different sets and they beef with each other. So in this particular instance, I believe Alejandro Guzman was mistaken for a rival. He was chased into a bodega and stabbed numerous times. It's all caught on video. A lot of people have seen the footage that I'm talking about. But this is the kind of violence that this gang is capable of, you know. So I had interactions with them. I would see them around. They don't, you know, where I was working in Queens, you didn't see them too much. There were some in Corona by the 7 line, but the majority of them are concentrated in Washington Heights, Upper Manhattan, and in the Bronx. That being said, you know, they did spread out their tentacles to do their criminal activity, like I was saying before. They're deeply entrenched in all of New York City. They're all over the place. So my run-ins with the Trinitarios, I'll tell you a quick story. So if anybody's familiar with the Queens Center Mall, it's a big hub in Queens. It's located on Woodhaven Boulevard and Queens Boulevard. In that station, connected to it underground, is a subway station. It's about 1 block away. And it's the Woodhaven stop on the M, E, F, R. I believe all those trains stop there. Anyway, my unit and I believe, was a sergeant and about 3 cops. We were called to Woodhaven because of a crime condition. I believe there was various swipers, people getting robbed for their stuff coming from the mall and then coming down into the subway station, and, you know, people robbing them for their items they just bought and stuff like that. So it was a physical presence thing. But in this instance, we were actually looking for these particular gang members or a particular gang of individuals who were robbing people on the train. That's why we were stationed there. It was a grand larceny pattern, I believe. Anyway, we're down there in our plain clothes, you know, doing the undercover work. We're walking around the subway station. riding the trains back and forth, one stop to the next, just kind of having our physical presence there. When we noticed two individuals, two Hispanic males, they looked Dominican, and they were posted up, and they kept coming in and out of the subway system. Now, if you're a New Yorker or anyone that can kind of tell patterns, in New York, everyone's got somewhere to go or something to do. So everybody's moving at a very fast pace. I mean, the pace is extremely fast. Everybody's got somewhere to go. So nobody's really standing around doing absolutely nothing within the subway system. Everybody's got somewhere to go and something to do. So the person that is standing around, it kind of raises your level of suspicion to see what they're doing, especially in the subway station. Maybe they're waiting for someone, or they're waiting for a particular train. But if you see a couple trains pass and they're still waiting on the platform, or happen to be on the mezzanine level, you might want to investigate and see what's going on. At the very least, they're loitering or up to no good, So that being said, these two individuals, they kept exiting and entering the subway system, like coming down one set of stairs and then going out the other. They would congregate for a little bit, but you recognize the patterns. And I was wondering, what were these guys doing? And I brought it to the attention of the sergeant, and he said, I don't know, let's see. Maybe they're swipers. Maybe they're selling swipes upstairs, the MetroCard swipes for cash, and then swiping the people in. But we didn't see them with the MetroCard, so they had to be doing something else. Lo and behold, we initiated a stop. And the reason we initiated that stop was because we saw a weapon on one of the individuals. He had a knife, a pocket knife, but it was visible. That just gave me enough suspicion to stop this individual. As we stop him, they were totally surprised. We had stopped both of them. The other one tried to run at that same time. And when he tried to run, he TOS'd, which was theft of service. He jumped over the turnstile. So we didn't initially chase him when he ran. The guy with the knife, we had him. The other guy who ran, when he jumped over that turnstile, that gave us probable cause now to go after him. So two of my partners went after him as we have this other individual against the wall. We put him in cuffs just for our safety to investigate what's going on. Why do you have the knife? Maybe he's a construction worker. Who knows? I like to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But these two individuals were just raising so many red flags that I had to stop them. Lo and behold, we get both of them now in cuffs. They're against the wall, and they both have warrants. They both have something called an I-card. And an I-card is an investigation card that pops up. Someone wants to talk to them from another unit inside the New York City Police Department. So what they'll do is they'll put out in our system that this person it's like a warrant. They're wanted on a particular, for questioning, or wanted for probable cause to arrest, et cetera, et cetera. So these particular gentlemen, both of them had I-cards, and they were wanted for shootings in Upper Manhattan and the Bronx. Immediately, my suspicion, they were playing that I don't speak English game. I speak Spanish. So, I wasn't investigating them right away. I wasn't the one doing the initial questioning. It was my sergeant. He didn't speak Spanish. So I kind of just stayed back quiet. And I played that game sometimes just so I could see what they would say. Because sometimes the perps would slip up if they think that you don't speak their particular language. They'll start to say things to each other, especially in the back of the van. And this is exactly what happened. This instance also highlights the importance of police when they search a particular suspect. When a police officer is searching a suspect, they must make sure that they search this suspect thoroughly, or else this could lead to a life and death situation. Anyway, we get them in the car. We search them well for the weapons. I take the knife off. We get them in the car, and they're commiserating in the back. They're talking. They're whispering to each other. I'm like, what's going on? What could they possibly be talking about? And obviously, you just want to keep an ear just to see what's going on. There was a cop sitting next to them, and I was kind of in front of them in the paddy wagon. So there's like 3 rows. I'm in the middle row. They're in the last, and then we had the operator, and the sergeant. And I hear him mumble something about cut. He says something about cut. He said CORTA, and in Spanish that means cut. In my head, I'm like, what is he trying to say? I'm trying to pay attention, and he's like, you got it? You still got it? Like almost as if he's wondering if we found it. So my alarms, the bells were going off in my head, the alarm was going off, and I said, they have something else, or they just did something else, or maybe they thought that we arrested them because they just cut someone. There was a lot of things going through my head. At this time, I'm texting the sergeant. He's in the front seat. I don't want to let them know that we know what's going on. I'm texting the sergeant. I said, hey, listen, they're talking in Spanish. I think they have something else on them. I'm not really sure. Let's find out what's going on with them. He was like, yeah, okay. As soon as we get them out, before we even take them to the desk, let's search him and see what's going on. Because if you go take him to the desk now and you're searching a prisoner in front of the desk and some kind of contraband falls out, you can get in trouble. You can be disciplined for that. Discipline, command discipline, vacation days taken away, possibly fired, depending on how severe the situation is. I mean, if you're pulling out a gun at the desk and you didn't search him in the field, you're putting officers' lives at risk, and they don't take that lightly. You know, they take that very seriously. That being said, as soon as we stopped the car at the precinct, we got him out, we did a whole search right outside the van just to see what was going on. And I asked him, I started talking to him in Spanish, and you could see both their eyes lit up like, oh shit, he speaks Spanish. And I was like, what is it? What do you have? And he's like, oh, nothing. And he's like, you know, doing this with his neck. And I was like, all right, we got to check these guys better. Because sometimes these guys hide stuff in their socks, in between their toes. If you know anything about crack dealers, they're notorious for this, hiding stuff in between their toes, in their asses, up their anal cavity. I mean, anywhere. They wear 2-3 pairs of pants. They'll put the stuff in the sewing of the pants. They're legit criminals. They're very skilled. They know how to hide stuff. You know, they're contraband smugglers, you know, traffickers. So we start searching them. And lo and behold, both of them had, you know, it was wintertime. It was cold, so they had like hoodies and jackets. One of them had a hoodie that was a little bit rolled. So we rolled out the hoodie and everything on the first go around, but nothing came out. On the second time, we rolled it and we kind of jiggled it a little bit, and out fell about 10 to 20 decks of heroin. So what these guys were doing after we found that heroin, we were like, this is what they were talking about. He had maybe mentioned something about the cut, maybe like he was referring to heroin as a cut. Sometimes these street terminologies, they have different slang terms in regards to how they refer to the drugs. So in this instance, I guess he was calling it the cut. Like, hey, you got your cut? You still got the cut? Or did they find it? And he was talking about his drugs, his drug stash. So we had found that. Obviously, we had charged him with possession of heroin. And throughout further investigation, that's what they were doing there at Queens Boulevard and Woodhaven. Right in the train station, they were meeting customers in the mall, selling drugs. In that neighborhood, when you delve into the blocks, that Elmhurst, East Elmhurst, that kind of area, it can get a little shady. There's a lot of South American gangs that spill over from Corona and Jackson Heights. So, you know, there's a lot of situations that can go down there. And these two particular individuals thought it was a nice high traffic area. Nobody would notice them. They'd kind of go unnoticed, where they could just sell drugs and after making a sale, come down into the subway and then act like they just came out of the subway, kind of a rinse and repeat kind of thing. And I guess they were getting away with it for a long time because we weren't called there for drug dealing. We were called there for robbery. So I really have no idea how long they were operating there. They were very tight-lipped. It turns out that they were confirmed Trinitario gang members. We had spoken to a detective in gang intel who confirmed that. He was the detective that covered the Bronx. And I think gang is citywide, but he had the I-card out for these two individuals who were wanted in regards to a shooting in Upper Manhattan. So, yeah, I mean, you just never know who you're going to run into in the subway system. I've never had any run-ins with them personally in regards to their violence. When I was younger, we're at the Dominican parade. I used to go a lot with a lot of my friends. And there was a group of Trinitarios somewhere in the St. Nicholas in the 190s area. And, you know, the after party of the Dominican parade is usually uptown. It's in the Heights. And there was a group of individuals that were a little rowdy, and they were walking down the street and they were chanting something, which I guess the Trinitarios took as a threat, maybe another gang threat. These guys weren't gang members. They were just walking down the street, and some parade goers, probably about 8 to 10 of them. And two little short guys, two little Dominican guys, Trinitarios, they had the beads. You'll see them with the green beads and the bandanas. Two little guys go up to this group and say, hey, this is our neighborhood. We don't like that stuff. Stop that chant. Stop all that shit. And they were like, what do you mean? Like, you know, what are you saying? Like, you know, we're not gang. We're just hanging, you know, we're hanging out. We're having a good time, you know, enjoying the parade. They're like, so the guys look over to some other gang members that were kind of in the cut, laying in the background. They said, do I got the green light? They were asking for the green light. Now, what's a green light? A green light is a go-ahead to commit violence, shooting, stabbing, whatever it is that they were going to do. So in this instance, he kept saying, do I have the green light? Green light? What do you mean green light? What's green light? They must have got the okay, takes out a gun, boom, shoots one of the guys right in the shoulder. I mean, these guys are notorious. They carry machetes all over the place. You'll see them in the gang attacks where they attack some 15-year-old or 14-year-old on a highway in the Bronx. You know, they roll deep, about 20 of them or whatever, just stomping this kid out. and they all have machetes and they roll pretty deep. So, they're a serious group of individuals, not to be taken lightly. A lot of them are seasoned criminals. You've probably seen them on Gangland and stuff. They've done legit documentaries on these guys. So, I don't know. They're homegrown though. They're a gang that was born here, and then their tentacles spread it out. Recently, in regards to the gang, you heard about them in the news back in February, where about 24 of them were rounded up in the Boston area and charged with a slew of crimes ranging from criminal conspiracy, extortion, murder, gang activity. I mean, there's so many. I'm not really sure. I didn't go through the actual indictment to read every single crime, but there's a numerous amount of crimes that they're all convicted of or accused of.
Law enforcement announced a massive crackdown on one of the state's most dangerous criminal organizations. Thanks for being with us tonight, everyone. I'm Colton Bradford.
And I'm Priscilla Casper. 8 members of the Trinitarios were arrested this morning. Our NBC 10's John Maroney is in South Boston with the details.
The Trinitarios are now charged in this 2023 shooting that killed 2 people in Lynn right after Christmas. The gang's accused of 6 murders and 11 attempted murders, as well as robbery and racketeering.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Tony Hernandez. If you like this video, please press that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take it easy.
What we found, there's a strong connection. One of deadly violence and organized crime.